The surveillance footage is grainy, timestamped 2:57 a.m. on a Friday night in October. A man in navy blue coveralls emerges from the service elevator of First National Bank's downtown Cincinnati branch, methodically wheeling a large metal tool chest toward the employee exit. His movements are unhurried, professional. He nods to the overnight security guard, exchanges a few words about the completed maintenance work, and disappears into the parking garage. 72 hours later, during routine Monday morning preparations for the weekly cash courier transfer, bank staff would discover that $8.2 million in unmarked bills had vanished from the main vault. There were no broken locks, no triggered alarms, no evidence of forced entry. The vault's biometric and keypad security systems showed no unauthorized access attempts. The surveillance cameras revealed nothing suspicious. The only outsider with legitimate access to the vault that weekend was Ralph Edward Devlin, a 43-year-old certified vault maintenance technician subcontracted through Secure Systems Integration, a third-party security maintenance firm. By the time investigators connected the missing money to the Friday night maintenance window, Ralph Devlin had vanished without a trace. This is the story of what the FBI would later classify as one of the most precise, nonviolent bank thefts in recent years. A crime that required not just technical expertise and inside knowledge, but months of meticulous planning and the patience to wait for the perfect opportunity. Ralph Edward Devlin lived the kind of unremarkable life that made him virtually invisible to those around him. Born in Akron, Ohio, in 1979, he had spent the better part of 2 decades working in electronic security systems, progressing from basic alarm installations to the specialized field of bank vault maintenance. His personnel file at Secure Systems Integration painted the picture of a model employee, punctual, thorough, and technically gifted. Over 4 years with the company, Ralph had serviced vault systems at 11 different bank branches across Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. He was known for his preference to work alone or with minimal supervision, often completing complex upgrades and repairs in half the time his colleagues required. Bank managers consistently rated his work as exceptional, noting his quiet professionalism and ability to complete maintenance without disrupting normal operations. Those who knew Ralph described him as intensely private. He rented a modest 2-bedroom house in Deer Park, a working-class suburb 20 minutes east of Cincinnati. Neighbors rarely saw him except for his methodical weekend lawn maintenance or his daily 6 a.m. departure for work in his company-issued van. He drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic for personal use, shopped at the same grocery store every Thursday evening, and had standing prescriptions for blood pressure medication and reading glasses at the local CVS. The divorce had been finalized 18 months earlier. Ralph's ex-wife, Jennifer, would later tell investigators that their marriage had collapsed not due to infidelity or abuse, but because of Ralph's increasing obsession with work and his inability to form emotional connections. He could spend hours explaining how a biometric scanner calibrated itself, she said, but he couldn't tell you what he felt about anything. There were no children, no close friends, no social media presence. Ralph's life existed within the narrow confines of technical manuals, maintenance schedules, and the solitary satisfaction of solving complex security puzzles. He never took vacations, rarely called in sick, and had accumulated over 200 hours of unused paid time off. What nobody knew was that Ralph had been studying the vulnerabilities in vault security systems for over 2 years, not as an academic exercise, but as preparation for the crime that would define his legacy. The work order came through Secure Systems Integration's dispatch system on a Tuesday morning in early October. First National Bank's downtown Cincinnati branch needed scheduled maintenance on their Mosler double-guard vault system. Keypad firmware updates, biometric sensor recalibration, and replacement of the backup power supply. The work was classified as routine preventive maintenance, the kind Ralph had performed dozens of times before. The timing requirements made it an after-hours job. Bank policy prohibited vault maintenance during business hours, and the electronic systems needed to be taken offline during the upgrade process. The branch manager requested an overnight window, starting at 11:30 p.m. on Friday and completing by 3 a.m. Saturday. This would minimize disruption to weekend operations while ensuring the vault was fully operational for Monday's business. Ralph's supervisor assigned him to the job along with Marcus Torres, a junior technician who had worked with Ralph on 3 previous installations. Marcus was scheduled to assist with the hardware components while Ralph handled the software and calibration work. It was a standard two-man team for a routine maintenance operation. On Thursday afternoon, Marcus called in sick with what he claimed was food poisoning. His symptoms were severe enough that he wouldn't be able to work the Friday night shift. Ralph's supervisor offered to delay the maintenance until the following week, but Ralph volunteered to handle the job alone. He explained that the work was well within his capabilities and that delaying would require rescheduling the bank's weekend security protocols. The supervisor approved Ralph's request. After 4 years of flawless performance and multiple successful solo operations, there was no reason to question his competence or integrity. The work order was modified to show a single technician assignment, and Ralph was provided with the temporary access codes and security clearance documentation. What the bank's security department didn't realize was that Ralph had been waiting for exactly this scenario. He had studied the work rotation schedules, knew which technicians were most likely to call in sick, and had been preparing for months to execute his plan during a solo maintenance window. The Friday night assignment wasn't random luck. It was the culmination of patient observation and careful manipulation of circumstances that would give him unsupervised access to one of the most secure vaults in the region. Ralph's technical expertise wasn't limited to following installation manuals and troubleshooting error codes. Over his 4-year career in vault maintenance, he had developed an encyclopedic knowledge of security system vulnerabilities that most technicians never bothered to explore. While his colleagues focused on completing jobs quickly and moving to the next assignment, Ralph studied every aspect of how these systems could fail or be made to fail. The Mosler double guard system used by First National represented the cutting edge of vault security technology. It featured redundant biometric scanners, encrypted keypad entry, motion sensors, and a sophisticated audit logging system that recorded every access attempt with millisecond precision. The system was designed to be tamper-proof, with multiple fail-safes that would trigger alarms if anyone attempted to bypass normal security protocols. But Ralph had discovered something that the system designers hadn't fully considered. The maintenance mode protocols created a narrow window of vulnerability that could be exploited by someone with deep technical knowledge and legitimate access. Credentials. During firmware updates, the system temporarily disabled certain security features to prevent conflicts with the new software. This created a 90-second reset cycle where the biometric and keypad systems operated on backup protocols. The vault could still be opened during this window, but only using a temporary bypass code that was generated algorithmically based on the specific firmware version and installation timestamp. Ralph had spent months reverse engineering the bypass code generation algorithm using test systems and documentation he had legitimate access to through his work. He discovered that the code remained valid for exactly 17 minutes after the firmware installation began, long enough for a technician to test the new systems and verify proper operation. More importantly, during this 17-minute window, the audit logging system was suspended while the security software reset to factory configuration. Any vault access during this period would be recorded in temporary memory that was automatically purged when the system came back online. Ralph had also identified a critical flaw in the surveillance system integration. The vault's internal cameras were hardwired to the same central processing unit that managed the electronic locks. During the firmware reset cycle, the cameras defaulted to a maintenance mode that created a 17-minute gap in recorded surveillance, ostensibly to prevent maintenance activities from triggering false security alerts. The final piece of Ralph's plan involved the vault's contents. Through routine maintenance logs and casual conversations with bank staff, he had learned that Friday nights were when the bank prepared large cash transfers for weekend courier pickup. The vault typically contained between $6 to $10 million in unmarked bills on Friday evenings, significantly more than the usual daily operating cash reserves. Ralph had fabricated a second tool chest, identical to his standard maintenance kit, but equipped with custom electronics and a false bottom compartment. He had tested the bypass procedure on 3 different practice systems, timing each step with stopwatch precision. He knew exactly how long each phase of the operation would take, where the surveillance blind spots were located, and how to remove the maximum amount of cash while leaving enough behind to delay discovery. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Use the legitimate maintenance window to trigger the security bypass, access the vault during the surveillance gap, remove the cash, and complete the scheduled maintenance work as if nothing had happened. By the time anyone discovered the theft, Ralph would be hundreds of miles away with a head start that might never be overcome. Ralph arrived at First National's downtown branch at exactly 11:20 p.m. on Friday, October 15th. The night security guard, Robert Chen, was expecting him. Ralph presented his identification badge and work order, made small talk about the predicted rain, and wheeled his two tool chests toward the service elevator. Everything appeared completely routine. The bank's main vault occupied most of the basement level, accessible through a reinforced corridor lined with additional security cameras and motion sensors. Ralph had worked in this vault twice before during previous maintenance cycles, so his presence wouldn't seem unusual to anyone reviewing the surveillance footage later. At 11:35 p.m., Ralph began the official maintenance procedure by connecting his diagnostic equipment to the vault's central processing unit. The system displayed the standard pre-installation checklist: verify backup power, test communication links, confirm audit log synchronization. Ralph methodically completed each step, documenting his progress on the official maintenance forms. At 11:47 p.m., he initiated the firmware update sequence. The system displayed a warning about temporary security protocol suspension and requested confirmation to proceed. Ralph entered his technician authorization code and pressed enter. The 90-second countdown began immediately. During the next 90 seconds, Ralph worked with practiced efficiency. He retrieved his custom bypass device from the hidden compartment in his second tool chest. A small electronic module he had designed to interface directly with the vault's backup authentication system. The device contained a microcomputer programmed with the bypass code algorithm and timing sequences he had spent months perfecting. At exactly 11:49 p.m., the system entered maintenance mode. Ralph connected his bypass device and waited for the 17-minute surveillance gap to begin. The vault's internal cameras displayed a maintenance mode message and ceased recording. The audit logging system switched to temporary memory storage that would be automatically purged when normal operations resumed. Ralph had 17 minutes to complete the theft and return the vault to its normal state. The Mosler double guard's massive steel door swung open silently on hydraulic hinges. Inside, the vault's climate-controlled interior contained row upon row of cash storage compartments, safety deposit boxes, and document storage units. Ralph moved directly to the cash storage section, guided by the mental map he had created during previous legitimate maintenance visits. The unmarked bills were stored in vacuum-sealed bundles organized by denomination, each bundle containing exactly $50,000. Ralph had calculated that he could remove 164 bundles, $8.2 million, while leaving enough cash behind to avoid immediate detection during casual inspections. Working with surgical precision, Ralph removed the selected bundles and placed them in pre-fitted compartments within his modified tool chest. The false bottom and side panels were designed to accommodate exactly this amount of currency while maintaining the chest's normal weight distribution and external appearance. The entire cash removal process took 11 minutes. Ralph used the remaining time to complete several legitimate maintenance tasks. He actually did update the keypad firmware, recalibrated 2 biometric sensors, and replaced a faulty backup battery. These authentic maintenance activities would be reflected in the system logs, providing perfect cover for his presence in the vault. At 12:06 a.m., Ralph sealed the vault and initiated the system restoration sequence. The Mosler's electronic locks engaged with their characteristic triple-click sequence, the surveillance cameras resumed normal operation, and the audit logging system switched back to permanent storage mode. The firmware update showed as successfully completed in the maintenance logs. Ralph spent an additional hour completing paperwork, testing the upgraded systems, and performing the standard post-installation verification procedures. Every step was documented according to company protocols. The maintenance work was genuinely completed to professional standards. No one reviewing the technical logs would find anything suspicious. At 2:57 a.m., Ralph wheeled his tool chest back to the service elevator. He stopped by the security desk to inform Robert Chen that the work was completed successfully and that the vault was fully operational. Chen noted the completion time in his logbook and thanked Ralph for the professional service. The surveillance footage from this moment shows Ralph appearing calm and unhurried, exchanging pleasantries with Chen about the weekend weather forecast. There's no visible indication that he had just stolen $8.2 million. His tool chests show no signs of unusual weight or bulk. His demeanor is identical to the dozens of other maintenance visits captured on similar surveillance videos. Ralph loaded his equipment into his company van and drove away from the bank at 3:03 a.m. The overnight guard would later tell investigators that nothing about the interaction seemed unusual or memorable. It appeared to be just another routine maintenance call completed by a competent professional. By the time Ralph reached his predetermined stopping point, a 24-hour storage facility 2 miles from the bank, he had successfully executed what would become one of the most sophisticated vault thefts in criminal history. The most remarkable aspect wasn't just the technical precision, but the fact that he had stolen millions of dollars while actually performing the maintenance work he was paid to do. Ralph's escape plan demonstrated the same methodical precision that had characterized every aspect of his life and career. Unlike many criminals who flee in panic after committing their crimes, Ralph had spent months preparing a disappearance strategy that would give him maximum time before discovery and the best chance of permanent evasion. The 24-hour storage facility on Riverside Drive had been rented 6 months earlier under the name David Richardson, using a fake ID and cash payments that couldn't be traced. Ralph had visited the unit only twice during daylight hours, both times wearing different clothing and arriving in his personal Honda Civic rather than the company van. Inside the storage unit waited a black 2018 Chevrolet Suburban that Ralph had purchased from a private seller in Louisville using the same false identity. The vehicle had been modified with custom storage compartments and a sophisticated GPS jamming system. Ralph had also stockpiled supplies, non-perishable food, water, camping equipment, changes of clothing, and $15,000 in cash accumulated through careful budget management over the previous year. At 3:18 a.m., Ralph opened the storage unit and began the most critical phase of his escape. He transferred the $8.2 million from his tool chest to the specially designed compartments in the Suburban, vacuum sealing the currency in waterproof packages and distributing the weight evenly throughout the vehicle. The entire transfer process took 23 minutes. Ralph then stripped out of his secure systems integration uniform and changed into civilian clothes, jeans, hiking boots, and a plain gray sweatshirt. The uniform, along with his company identification badge and all work-related documentation, went into a weighted duffel bag that would later be thrown into the Ohio River from the Clay Wade Bailey Bridge. The company van required special attention. Ralph had spent an hour after leaving the bank wiping down every surface with alcohol-based cleaning solution, removing any trace evidence that could connect him to the theft. He returned the van to Secure Systems Integration's dispatch lot at exactly 4:30 a.m., parking it in the designated space and placing the keys in the overnight drop box according to standard protocol. By 5:30 a.m., Ralph was crossing the Indiana state line on Highway 50, taking rural roads that avoided major interstate highways and their associated surveillance cameras. His phones, both personal and company devices, had been destroyed and disposed of in separate dumpsters across Cincinnati. He carried no electronic devices that could be tracked or traced. The route Ralph had planned took him northwest through Indiana into Illinois, then west across Missouri toward Kansas. He avoided toll roads, gas stations with security cameras, and any stops that might create a digital record of his passage. The Suburban's fuel capacity allowed him to drive over 400 miles without stopping, and he had pre-positioned additional fuel supplies at 3 locations along his escape route. Ralph's timeline was based on his understanding of how long it would take the bank to discover the theft. He knew that the vault wouldn't be accessed again until Monday morning's courier preparation, giving him a minimum 60-hour head start. During this window, he planned to put at least 1,000 miles between himself and Cincinnati while establishing the foundation for a new identity. The most sophisticated aspect of Ralph's escape plan wasn't geographical, it was psychological. He had studied dozens of high-profile theft cases and identified the most common mistakes that led to capture. Flight patterns that were too erratic attracted attention. Criminals who tried to maintain contact with their old lives were inevitably traced. Those who spent stolen money too quickly or conspicuously were caught within months. Ralph's strategy was the opposite: complete disappearance followed by patient, conservative establishment of a new life. He planned to remain invisible for at least 2 years, living off his accumulated savings and legitimate income from temporary work. The stolen money would remain untouched until he was certain that active investigation had ceased. The last confirmed sighting of Ralph Devlin occurred at 11:47 p.m. on Sunday, October 17th, at a rural ATM outside Salina, Kansas. Surveillance footage showed a man matching Ralph's description withdrawing $300 from an account that had been emptied and closed by electronic transfer earlier that day. The man wore a baseball cap and sunglasses despite the nighttime hour, and he kept his face turned away from the camera. By Monday morning, when First National's staff discovered the missing $8.2 million, Ralph Devlin had vanished into the American landscape. The FBI would later estimate that he had at least a 72-hour head start before anyone realized a crime had been committed. More than enough time for someone with Ralph's planning abilities to disappear completely. Monday morning at First National Bank began like any other. Margaret Sullivan, the head teller, arrived at 7:30 a.m. to prepare for the weekly cash courier transfer scheduled for 9 a.m. The process was routine. Verify weekend deposit totals, organize cash shipments by denomination, and ensure that security seals were properly applied to all transport containers. Margaret descended to the vault level at 7:45 a.m., accompanied by branch manager David Torres and security supervisor Linda Hayes. The trio followed standard protocol. Each provided their individual access credentials, and Torres entered the vault master code. The Mosler double guard's massive door swung open with its characteristic hydraulic whisper. The first indication that something was wrong came from Margaret's mental inventory. After 15 years of handling cash transfers, she had developed an intuitive sense for volume and distribution. The vault's cash storage area appeared sparse. Not empty, but definitely lighter than the $12 to $15 million that should have been present after Friday's business operations. David, Margaret said, checking her paperwork. Are we showing any large withdrawals or transfers that I missed? Torres consulted his weekend activity log. There had been no unusual transactions, no emergency cash calls, no authorized transfers. According to all documentation, the vault should contain $14.2 million in various denominations, plus the standard safety deposit boxes in document storage. Linda Hayes began a systematic count while Margaret and Torres reviewed the electronic logs. The biometric access records showed only authorized entries: Margaret's Friday evening deposit verification, the weekend cleaning crew's safety deposit area access, and Ralph Devlin's Friday night maintenance visit. The cash count revealed the devastating truth. $8.2 million in unmarked bills was missing. The theft had been surgical in its precision. Large denomination bundles removed in a pattern that initially obscured the scope of the loss. Smaller bills and coins remained untouched, along with marked currency designated for specific business accounts. Torres immediately activated the bank's emergency protocols. At 8:23 a.m., he contacted First National's corporate security office and the Cincinnati Police Department. By 8:35 a.m., the vault was sealed as a crime scene, and FBI agents were en route from the Cincinnati field office. The initial investigation focused on the most obvious suspects: bank employees with vault access. Margaret Sullivan, Linda Hayes, and 3 other staff members were interviewed extensively, their financial records examined, and their alibis verified. All were cleared within 24 hours. The breakthrough came when FBI forensic accountants cross-referenced the missing cash with the vault's maintenance logs. Special Agent Sarah Chen noticed that the theft occurred during the exact window when Ralph Devlin had legitimate, unsupervised access to the vault. More troubling, the bank's surveillance system showed a 17-minute gap in vault monitoring that coincided precisely with Devlin's firmware update procedures. This wasn't a lucky coincidence, Agent Chen told her supervisor. Someone with deep technical knowledge exploited a vulnerability in the security system during routine maintenance. The timing is too perfect to be accidental. By Tuesday afternoon, investigators had obtained search warrants for Ralph's residence and employment records. What they found at his Deer Park home confirmed their worst fears. The house had been systematically emptied. Personal belongings were gone, financial accounts had been closed, and utility services had been canceled effective October 15th, the day of the theft. Ralph's landlord, Jerry Kozlowski, told investigators that Ralph had paid 3 months' rent in advance on October 10th and mentioned he might be relocating for work opportunities. Neighbors confirmed they hadn't seen Ralph's Honda Civic or company van since the previous Friday. Secure Systems Integration provided Ralph's employment records and technical certifications, but couldn't explain how their vetted, trusted employee had apparently used his expertise to commit one of the most sophisticated vault thefts in recent times. Memory. Company President Michael Rodriguez expressed shock and disbelief. Ralph was our most reliable technician. His background check was spotless. This is completely out of character. The FBI's technical analysis revealed the elegant sophistication of Ralph's crime. He had exploited a previously unknown vulnerability in the Mosler system's maintenance protocols, using legitimate access to mask unauthorized activity. The theft required not just technical skill, but intimate knowledge of bank operations, surveillance systems, and security procedures. More concerning was the realization that Ralph had planned his escape with the same precision he applied to the theft. His company van had been returned on schedule and thoroughly cleaned. His personal vehicle was missing. His phones were disconnected, his bank accounts emptied, and his credit cards canceled. Agent Chen briefed her team on the scope of the challenge. "We're dealing with someone who understood exactly how we would investigate this crime and planned accordingly. He's had a minimum 72-hour head start, and he's demonstrated sophisticated operational security. This isn't going to be a quick capture." The discovery that Ralph Devlin had vanished with $8.2 million marked the beginning of what would become one of the FBI's most challenging white-collar fugitive investigations. Unlike crimes of passion or opportunity, this theft had been executed by someone who understood both the technical vulnerabilities he was exploiting and the investigative methods that would be used to pursue him. Ralph Devlin had not just stolen money, he had disappeared into a carefully planned new existence, leaving behind only questions and the grudging professional admiration of the agents tasked with finding him. The FBI's Cincinnati field office assigned a specialized white-collar crime task force to the Devlin case, led by Special Agent Sarah Chen, a 12-year veteran with extensive experience in financial crimes and fugitive investigations. The case presented unique challenges that separated it from typical bank robbery investigations. Most bank thefts are crimes of desperation or opportunity, Agent Chen explained to her team. The perpetrator panics, makes mistakes, leaves evidence. This is different. We're dealing with someone who spent months or years planning this operation and designed his escape to exploit weaknesses in our standard investigative procedures. The task force's initial focus involved reconstructing Ralph's preparation phase. Financial records revealed a pattern of modest, disciplined saving over several years, with no suspicious purchases or lifestyle changes that might indicate criminal planning. His credit reports showed consistent, on-time payments and conservative spending habits. His employment evaluations were uniformly positive, with no disciplinary actions or performance concerns. Computer forensics specialists examined Ralph's personal devices, but found only factory reset equipment with no recoverable data. His internet service provider's records showed routine usage patterns: technical forums, online banking, weather reports, and occasional streaming video. There were no suspicious searches, no communications with potential accomplices, no digital breadcrumbs that might reveal his destination or intentions. The investigation expanded to Ralph's social connections, limited though they were. His ex-wife Jennifer provided insight into his personality, but could offer no information about his recent activities or possible hiding places. Co-workers described him as competent but distant, someone who completed his assignments efficiently but formed no personal relationships. "Ralph was like a ghost even when he was here," said Marcus Torres, the junior technician who had called in sick the night of the theft. "He knew everything about the technical side of our work, but I couldn't tell you his favorite food or what he did on weekends. I worked with him for 2 years and never had a personal conversation." The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit developed a psychological profile of Ralph that emphasized his methodical nature, technical expertise, and social isolation. They predicted that he would avoid impulsive decisions, maintain a low profile, and resist the temptation to spend the stolen money conspicuously. The profile suggested that Ralph might remain undetected for months or years if he continued following his established pattern of careful planning. Agent Chen's team expanded the investigation geographically, coordinating with field offices across the Midwest and Plain States. The rural ATM sighting in Salina, Kansas, provided their only confirmed lead, but the trail went cold immediately afterward. Analysis of the withdrawals suggested that Ralph had been testing whether his accounts were being monitored and had probably detected the surveillance within hours. The technical aspects of the case attracted attention from the FBI's cyber division and bank security specialists nationwide. Ralph's exploitation of the Mosler system's maintenance protocols exposed a vulnerability that potentially affected hundreds of financial institutions. The Bureau issued classified warnings to major banks about the specific security gaps Ralph had identified, leading to emergency firmware updates and protocol revisions. "From a purely technical standpoint, this was brilliant," admitted Dr. James Morrison, a security consultant who reviewed the case for the banking industry. "Devlin identified a flaw that the system designers missed developed a method to exploit it, and executed the attack flawlessly. If he had published his findings as legitimate security research instead of using them for theft, he would have been celebrated as an expert. Media attention intensified as details of the sophisticated theft became public. The case drew comparisons to famous heist movies and sparked debates about insider threats in the financial sector. Ralph's ordinary appearance and unremarkable lifestyle made him an unlikely criminal celebrity. The quiet technician who had outsmarted both sophisticated security systems and federal investigators. The FBI offered a $100,000 reward for information leading to Ralph's capture and the recovery of the stolen funds. Tip lines received hundreds of calls from people claiming to have spotted him in locations ranging from rural Montana to suburban Florida, but none of the sightings could be verified. As weeks stretched into months, Agent Chen faced the possibility that Ralph Devlin might never be found. Unlike most fugitives, he had demonstrated exceptional operational security and appeared to have genuinely disappeared rather than simply hiding. The case file grew thick with investigated leads, interviewed witnesses, and analyzed evidence. But Ralph remained as elusive as he had been meticulous in planning his crime. "We're dealing with someone who understood our investigation methods before he committed his crime," Chen reported to FBI headquarters. "He anticipated our response and prepared accordingly. Unless he makes a significant mistake or someone with direct knowledge comes forward, this case could remain open indefinitely." The Ralph Devlin investigation became a study in criminal sophistication and investigative challenges. It demonstrated how technical expertise, careful planning, and disciplined execution could allow a determined individual to commit a major crime and disappear completely. The case remained active, but with each passing month, the likelihood of recovery diminished. Ralph Devlin had achieved something that most criminals never manage. He had committed the perfect crime and vanished into legend. Whether he would remain free forever or eventually be undone by time and circumstance remained the central question in one of the FBI's most professionally frustrating investigations. The $8.2 million had disappeared along with its thief, leaving behind only questions about how one quiet technician had managed to outsmart an entire system designed to prevent exactly what he had accomplished. In the world of white-collar crime, Ralph Devlin had become both a cautionary tale and a case study in criminal excellence. His story serves as a reminder that the most dangerous criminals are often not the violent or desperate ones, but the patient, intelligent individuals who understand the systems they seek to defeat and have the discipline to execute their plans flawlessly. Ralph Devlin had proven that with enough preparation, technical knowledge, and careful execution, even the most secure systems could be compromised by someone determined to beat them. 3 years have passed since Ralph Devlin walked away from First National Bank with $8.2 million, and his case has become legendary within law enforcement circles. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit has used the Devlin case as a teaching example for understanding methodical, high-functioning criminals who operate outside traditional criminal profiles. Dr. Patricia Williams, a criminal psychologist who consulted on the case, described Ralph as representing a new category of offender. He wasn't driven by desperation, addiction, or emotional instability. This was intellectual crime, someone who saw a complex puzzle and decided to solve it, regardless of the legal consequences. The theft was almost secondary to the satisfaction of proving it could be done. The technical aspects of Ralph's crime revolutionized bank security protocols nationwide. Mosler Corporation issued emergency patches for their double guard systems, and the vulnerability Ralph exploited has been permanently closed. However, security experts warn that his methodology could be adapted to other systems by someone with similar technical expertise and patience. Devlin didn't just steal money, explained cybersecurity researcher Dr. Michael Chang. He exposed fundamental flaws in how we think about insider threats and maintenance protocols. Every security system has to balance functionality with protection, and Ralph found the exact point where that balance created opportunity. The impact extended beyond technical considerations. Background check procedures for maintenance contractors were overhauled industry-wide, with new requirements for psychological evaluations, deeper financial scrutiny, and mandatory partner supervision for sensitive installations. The concept of the trusted insider was forever changed by Ralph's betrayal of that trust. Media fascination with the case has only grown over time. True crime podcasts, documentary crews, and investigative journalists continue to analyze every aspect of Ralph's planning and execution. His methodical approach and complete disappearance have made him a folk hero among those who admire technical brilliance, even when applied to criminal ends. Several books have been published about the case, including The Ghost in the Vault by former FBI agent Sarah Chen and Perfect Crime, The Ralph Devlin Story by investigative journalist Mark Thompson. Hollywood studios have expressed interest in adaptation rights, though the FBI has discouraged glorification of Ralph's methods. The search for Ralph Devlin continues, though with diminished intensity. Agent Chen, now retired from the Bureau, admits that the trail has gone completely cold. Ralph understood that time was his greatest ally, she reflected. Every month that passes makes it less likely we'll find him. He's probably living a quiet life somewhere, working a regular job, being exactly as invisible as he was before the theft. Sightings still come in periodically. A maintenance worker in Oregon who resembles Ralph's description, a bank customer in Texas whose mannerisms match witness accounts, a man in rural Montana whose technical knowledge seems suspicious. None have proven legitimate, but each generates renewed hope among investigators that Ralph might eventually make the mistake that leads to his capture. The stolen $8.2 million remains missing. Financial analysts believe Ralph was wise enough to resist spending the money conspicuously, instead living modestly while the statute of limitations runs on various aspects of his crime. Federal charges will never expire, but practical prosecution becomes more difficult with each passing year. Some law enforcement officials privately express grudging admiration for Ralph's achievement. He committed a major crime without violence, without accomplices who could betray him, and without leaving meaningful evidence. His escape plan was executed as flawlessly as the theft itself, suggesting a level of criminal sophistication that is exceptionally rare. The bank where Ralph worked his final legitimate job has returned to normal operations, though the vault area has been completely redesigned with new security protocols. A small plaque near the security desk commemorates the incident with deliberately understated language. In memory of October 15, 2022, a reminder that vigilance is eternal. Ralph's former colleagues at Secure Systems Integration speak of him with a mixture of bewilderment and professional respect. They trained alongside him, worked similar jobs, faced identical pressures and opportunities. Yet only Ralph saw the possibility that existed within the routine maintenance procedures they all performed regularly. "We all knew the systems had vulnerabilities during updates," said former technician David Park, "but none of us thought about exploiting them." Ralph wasn't just technically brilliant. He was thinking several steps ahead of everyone else, including the people who designed the security protocols. The psychological profile developed by the FBI remains the most comprehensive analysis of Ralph's motivations and methods. Behavioral analysts concluded that his crime represented the culmination of years of intellectual frustration and social isolation. The theft wasn't motivated by financial desperation, but by the challenge of proving his superior understanding of complex systems. Ralph lived in a world where his intelligence wasn't recognized or rewarded appropriately, noted criminal psychologist Dr. Amanda Foster. He was significantly more capable than his job required, more insightful than his colleagues realized, and more patient than anyone suspected. The theft was his way of demonstrating exactly how much everyone had underestimated him. The divorce records provided additional insight into Ralph's psychological state in the months preceding the crime. His ex-wife Jennifer described a man who had become increasingly obsessed with perfection and control, someone who spent hours analyzing security systems not just for work, but as intellectual exercises that consumed his free time. He would come home and immediately start sketching diagrams or reading technical manuals, Jennifer told investigators. "I thought it was dedication to his career, but looking back, I think he was planning something. He was always testing scenarios, always asking what-if questions about security procedures." Ralph's methodical nature extended to every aspect of his preparation. Financial records revealed that he had been accumulating cash for over 18 months, not through dramatic lifestyle changes, but through microscopic adjustments to his spending patterns. He eliminated subscription services, reduced grocery expenses, performed his own car maintenance, and avoided any purchases that weren't absolutely necessary. The fake identity he used for his escape preparations, David Richardson, had been carefully constructed over nearly a year. Ralph had obtained the necessary documentation through methods that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of identity fraud techniques, though investigators never determined exactly how he acquired the false credentials. Creating a clean false identity requires significant research and planning, explained FBI identity fraud specialist Agent Maria Santos. Ralph somehow obtained authentic-looking documentation that passed casual inspection. This wasn't amateur hour. He understood exactly what he needed and how to get it. The storage facility where Ralph prepared his escape vehicle became a crime scene that yielded minimal evidence. Despite extensive forensic analysis, investigators found only trace amounts of DNA that confirmed Ralph's presence. He had been meticulous about cleaning the space, removing fingerprints, and eliminating any physical evidence that might provide clues about his destination or methods. Whether Ralph Devlin will ever be caught remains an open question, but his impact on bank security, criminal investigation procedures, and our understanding of sophisticated white-collar crime is already permanent. He achieved something that most criminals never manage. He committed the perfect crime and vanished into legend, leaving behind only questions about how one quiet technician managed to outsmart an entire system designed to prevent exactly what he accomplished.